Okay, round two of this 5-round league. We are on the play, and we have a turn one vial, so no sense mulliganing this. Pretty reasonable draw. Lead with Island in case we want to Serum Visions into something. Step Links, that's interesting. Some type of zoo strategy, I guess. We're just going to Walking Ballista to get rid of that. Tarmogoyf, okay. It's going to be a tough one. Let's go ahead and play that thing out there. Increase the vial. That's a good one. Let's attack. So we have a decision here. We have two colorless lands and a blue land. So we can't click, but the vial is going to go up to 3 next turn to play the click anyway. And then we're going to play Master the following turn off the vial, presumably. So there's a couple of things we can do. We could just cast the Serum Visions and just leave the two other colorless mana stranded. Or we can activate the Field of Ruin to kill one of their lands, which gives us an island, so we can still play the Serum Visions. So it's just the question of, do we want to Field of Ruin them? And I think given that they have a red-white land and a black-green land, I feel like the answer is a pretty resounding yes. So then the only question is, which do I want to kill? Well, I'm thinking about which is the bigger threat. So usually in a zoo deck, they'll have a forest, but not necessarily a mountain or a plains. Because mountain, well, like one of the reasons in these 4-color decks to play basics is to get around Blood Moon. Well, lands are already mountains anyway, so you don't need a basic mountain to get around Blood Moon. And then with white, they probably don't have any plains either in a zoo deck, even if they have step links. But then green, it's like, well, sometimes like Tarmogoyfs and Wild Nacatls or whatnot, that's like a reason to play a forest as your one basic, if you have that. So I was thinking Field of Ruin, the non-green source. And also, since our plan of really winning this game involves Master of Waves, the way to kill a Master of Waves in this deck would presumably be Path to Exile. So I want to take you off white so that our Master of Waves can maybe ambush the Tarmogoyf and make things a lot better for us in that regard. So that's why I chose the Sacred Foundry. And the opponent actually does not have any basics. So that was pretty interesting. I kind of sped through what the Serum Visions was. Sorry about that. Wasn't thinking about the scry window going away that quick. So the other thing that it does, since now we have a sorcery in the graveyard, it pumps the Tarmogoyf. So there is some merit to considering the line of just not casting Serum Visions there, just so the Goyf doesn't get bigger. But I was thinking that the vial's about to go up to 3, and if I just draw a land, then I could just Master of Waves next turn. So I could violin the Vendilion Click, target the opponent, see what they have. I'll probably not take anything because they're stuck on mana now. But also just being able to cast the Click and the Master of Waves next turn. Or violin the Click and play the Master next turn. So I think what I did was I put a spell. I think I topped both. In fact, maybe we can check. Put a card on top, put a card on bottom. So no, I think I just I put a land on top. Or we're about to find out what I put on top. But I just take the damage here, and then uptick the vial. Yep, I put a land on top. And then I forget what I bottomed, but it was probably not anything that I wanted. So I attack. They go to 12. Then I click. And this is what I see. So, I feel like I chose the correct land to kill. um, so now if they don't draw a land, well, the Master of Waves is just going to put a crunch on them. But even if they do draw land, they don't have an answer in their hand to the Master of Waves because it's protection from red. So even if they draw land and can get red mana, they can't cast the Master of Waves. And also, the Tarmogoyf can't do anything special with Temur Battle Rage because, alright, sweet, we take, 8 damage, and then you're just like dead to the Master of Waves. Or we just sack the Mausoleum Wanderer to counter the Battle Rage because they won't be able to pay the extra 1. So I'm not really seeing a way for them to win this game unless they draw something really good. So we just let them keep all this. And then we just play the Master of Waves, getting 4 elemental tokens. And the opponent draws a Death Shadow. It's a 1/1. No sense upticking that. Play the Wanderer. And now, okay, I think we're attacking with everything here. So the reason to not attack with the Master of Waves, there's not really much of a reason. So the opponent's at 12. We attack with everyone. They block 2 creatures. So let's say they block, let's see, just for the math purposes, they block 2. They can't block the flyers. So they're definitely going to 7 from the flyers. But if they block 2, then they have 6 points of ground coming in and 5 points of flying. So the 5 points of flying puts them to 7, and then the 6 points of ground puts them to 1. So they have to block 2 of my creatures, right? And if they block 2 of my creatures, that means the Death Shadow is going to die, right? Wrong. Hold on. So state-based effects would check, and he would um, hmm. So you block Master of Waves and a token. You would take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, go to 1. So regardless, though, we would have 3 lethal flying attackers. We could even untap the Vendilion Click if we need to. And the opponent would basically we would just have to chump block the Death Shadow with a Wanderer. And they couldn't play an untapped shock land. They couldn't play a fetch land because they're at 1. So they basically can't get in. We know that they don't have any basic mountains in their deck because they didn't get it out with the Field of Ruin. So there's basically no way for them to cast any of their red spells next turn. We know that they have the +X/+X, which is only +2/+2 next turn. So we just chump block the Death Shadow, and the most they could deal us is 6. And even if they draw a removal spell, like a Fatal Push, we just sack the tapped Mausoleum Wanderer to counter it. So we can still chump block, and then the click is still a lethal attacker. So even if the Death Shadow doesn't die to state-based effects, which was, I think, what my thought process at this point, but even without it, we know their hand, and that since they drew the Death Shadow this turn, we have perfect information, and we know that there's absolutely nothing they can draw to beat us from this spot. So that was game 1. The way we sideboard for this matchup, I wanted to bring in the 4th Trinket Mage, the Basilisk Collar, the Brittle Effigy, if you have that. That's what I boarded in, but I would recommend playing Engineered Explosives instead, which I think is actually a better card than Effigy in this matchup, or at least just as good. And I brought in the Chalice, because Chalice for 1 seems really good in this matchup. And I also brought in the Spellskite, because they have some removal spells like Lightning Bolt, stuff like that. They also have the Pump spell, the Gaia's Might, which you can redirect to Spellskite, and that's pretty cool. And it can also just do some early blocking against some of their creatures. So I brought in the Spellskite as well. And I took out 2 Serum Visions, one of the 3 Vendilion Clicks, because it's good, but it's not super important. and one of the Ether Vials, because I feel like one of the ways we can lose is just getting Vial flooded. And in this matchup, I don't think we necessarily need a Vial in our opener. And if you have, let's see. Yes, that's basically what we did. If you have the explosives instead of the effigy, yeah, I would do that instead. So I thought about boarding out a spreading seas, but I don't think you should because they're playing all non-basics, and it looks like their one color they're not playing is blue. So spreading seas does seem pretty good. So that's how we sideboarded. Now for game two. We're on the draw. Now, this hand, it has a turn one Vial, but then, like, Mausoleum Wanderer is one of our worst cards in the matchup. It's like if we had more cards in our sideboard, we would probably bring those out. Um, and when you have a hand like this that like the turn one is good and the turn two is pretty good, but then like you really don't have any power going on after that. I felt like it was kind of close. If any of these lands were another spell, or if one of these wanderers were like a spell other than a one mana spell, or even if it was a Serum Visions, I think I would keep. But as is, I decided to mulligan it. Didn't I? Oh no, I didn't want to mulligan it. I should have mulliganed it. Yeah, that's right. I forgot. Sorry, this was the game I thought I should have mulliganed, and I didn't. I thought it was pretty close. Uh, my thinking was that I was on the draw, and Field of Ruin on turn 3 is also a pretty good play. Since we know they don't have any basics. They could have boarded into a basic, but even still, that's one basic. And since they're a 4-color deck, taking them off one of their colors is pretty beneficial, even if they did board that in. So yeah, I did keep it. Swift Spear, okay. Taylor Swift Spear. We did draw a creature though, so it's looking like it's working out so far. Gaia's Might, wow, geez. Alright, take 5. Take up Vial. Play Wander, leave the other one to get Vialed in at instant speed so I can make it a 2-2. Alright, never mind. So I take it. Geez, untapped land, what's going on here? Oh no, Might of Alara? And then, oh, Teamer Battle Rage for lethal. 14, we're at 14. This is a turn 3 kill. Turn 3 kill! Well, not really. We have got something for that. Alright, now we can take up to 2. Okay, that's not the worst. So we Field of Ruin the opponent. So we take them off black since we know they have Death Shadows and they're down to 1 card in hand. I felt like that was the card that, like, we can't take them off red mana because they have 2 red lands. We can't take them off green mana because they have 2 green lands. So it's the question of, do we take them off black or do we take them off white? I figure with black they can cast Death Shadow. With white, Step Links, like, okay, great. Like a 0/1 Step Links with no cards in hand is not, I mean, it's still a threat at this point if they draw a fetch land, but like a Death Shadow is like a much bigger threat. So I figured taking them off black was more important. So then so I took them off their color and played the effigy. So that next turn we can play a land, we can vial into play the architect, we can cast the other architect, and we can basically have 2 good blockers for the Swift Spear. They'd be 2/4s, they could just double block, and then we could just tap them both at instant speed to activate the effigy too, to kill the Swift Spear if we need to, like if they had some kind of trick or whatever. Um, so I felt like we're in pretty good position. We're just going to take 1 from the Swift Spear here and go to 6. They played a fetch land. All right. Oh, Lightning Bolt. All right. Well, we go to 2. But that's okay. Oh, we drew Master of Waves. Geez. All right. So now, instead of playing the 2 architects and basically putting them on a 3-turn clock, we can now put them on a just being dead next turn. We can just put them on a 1-turn clock. So we vial into play the architect, and then we cast the Master of Waves. So now what that does gives us 3/3/2 elementals. So now we're threatening 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 damage. The opponent's at 11 and has no cards in hand. So we're just going to say go. And if they attack with a Swift Spear, we block with our pro-red creature. And then if they do something like Battle Rage, then we just tap 2 of our creatures, because they all tap for 2 colorless mana that can be used to activate an artifact because of the Grand Architect. So we just use that mana to sack the effigy to kill the Swift Spear, and then attack for lethal. So any sort of pump spell, including a Temur Battle Rage, doesn't work. And if they just leave the Swift Spear back to block, well, you can block one of the elementals, but then you take 3, 6, 9, 10, go to 1. Well, we're not even going to give you that opportunity, because end step, we're just going to sack the effigy to kill the Swift Spear anyway. So basically, this effigy is going to kill the Swift Spear one way or another, unless they draw a creature and play another creature that we'd rather kill. That's the only reason we haven't done it yet. So we beat a pump spell, we beat another creature, we basically beat any land, we basically beat any card in their deck, except maybe what, like a lightning bolt? I mean, we're at 2, so they could bolt us, but not really much else can beat us at this point. In pretty good position here. They fetch, go to 10. So now, even a creature, they're just dead because they play another creature. We sack to kill either the Swift Spear or the creature, and they can block a 3-power creature, and then they still take 3, 6, 9, 10. So now, because they fetched, now even a creature doesn't buy them another turn because we now just have lethal. We just crack the effigy to kill one of their things. So now I think they have, out of 46 cards, because this is during their draw step, they have maybe at most 3 bolts. So 3 out of 45, so 1 in 15 chance. So they're like what, 7.5% or something to win. So we're like 93% to win this game. Like, okay, cool. All right then. Well, I guess we're playing in game 3. I guess we did all we could. So game 3. Leave things the way we did the previous game. So we're on the play. This hand I will keep. We have the turn 1 Vial. Then we have the turn 2. We can kill their step links if they lead with step links with Ballista. Or what I'd prefer to do is Serum Visions, and then the following turn, like into a land or whatever, 3rd land. So then we can play the Trinket Mage or the Architect, and then we can basically tap all our creatures to Ballista the following turn. Leads with Swift Spear. Okay. Again, I keep doing that. It's the 3 plays speed through the Serum Visions. Let's see what we did. We opponent, I guess, not too happy about how things are going. Put it on top and top. So I topped both here. So I guess we're about to find out what I topped. I play a Tarmogoyf, okay. So I topped a Field of Ruin. So I guess it doesn't matter what the other card is, because I shuffled it away with the Field of Ruin. So since we have double Field of Ruin and we know they don't have basics, I wanted to prioritize killing their land, and I want it to be the land that can produce the most threatening threats in their deck. So the one that can take them off the Death Shadow, take them off more Tarmogoyfs, can take them off of Fatal Push as well, because Fatal Push is an answer to most of our threats. If they find a fetch land, it's an answer to any of our threats. So we're just going to control their mana. We could have cast something like a Trinket Mage this turn, but given that Field of Ruin is so effective at keeping them low on lands, I figure we're at 18. We have time to let the Vial tick up, and to just set up a big turn in a couple turns. I didn't feel like it was super important for us to commit threats at this point. I'd rather take the risk of mana screwing them, and it worked. So now, all right, we took 4 down to 14, still at a reasonable life total. I'm going to Field of Ruin again, put them down to 0 lands. Vial into play the Trinket Mage to go get a Chalice, so we can Chalice for 1. Now, since they have no lands, the best they could do is draw a land, and then they still can't cast anything. They can't cast any of their 1-drops, including Death Shadow, Swift Spear, Step Links. So if they have any 1-drops in their hand, a land wouldn't even help them because they'll just get countered by the Chalice. So they need to draw runner lands in order to be able to cast anything that's of use. And, well, next turn, we're going to Vial into play the Architect and play a land and be able to tap both our creatures for 2 mana and tap 4 of our 5 lands and to play a Ballista for 4. A Ballista for 4 shuts down this entire board. So by playing the Trinket Mage off the Vial and then playing the Chalice for 1 after Field of Ruining them down to 0 lands, now we kind of have them in a sort of soft lock position. So we can play out our Ballista next turn for 4, which is going to lock down the board. So they can maybe attack us with the Tarmogoyf this turn to put us down to 12. And we have a 4/4, and then the following turn we get another 4/4 with the Ballista, the second Ballista. And we can even pay a blue to make the Ballista into a 5/5 if we need to. So at this point, we seem to be in a pretty commanding position. So let's put the Architect onto the battlefield, tap them both, tap some mana, just crank out a Ballista for 4, and the opponent doesn't draw a land and they've seen enough. So there's basically no coming back from this spot from the opponent now, because like even I guess just with what's on the board, let alone the second Ballista we have in hand, but basically we're going to just play the second Ballista for 4, attack with the first one. They can't really afford to block, maybe chump block with a Swift Spear, but if they do block it, like they try to quad block it, then we just make it blue and just, eat their Tarmogoyf and their Swift Spear. So they definitely can't gang block it. It's just chump block or take 5. And if they take 5 and go to 9, we have 8 counters between our 2 ballistas. So then they're effectively at 1. No fetch land does anything. Like they're strong dead, because we just untap and put a counter on the ballista and they're just dead. So they would have to chump block. So they chump block the Swift Spear. Now we have a pair of 4/4 ballistas, and they have a Goyf and a Swift Spear. And the next turn we could just add a counter to 1, make them blue, attack with a 3/3 Trinket Mage and a pair of 5/5 ballistas, and they chump block a ballista and they just take lethal basically. So there's basically nothing they can do at this point. We just sort of locked them out of the game. So the Field of Ruins kind of played an important role this match. The Chalice took away their chances of coming back. Yeah, so this is basically a 4-color Death Shadow Zoo type deck. 2-0.